Samuel lived a very quiet and simple life on his small farm at the edge of a wide valley in Arizona. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise, washed his face with cold water from a metal bucket, and stepped outside to breathe the fresh air. The world around him was calm, and the only sounds he usually heard were the soft calls of birds and the wind moving through the dry grass. For most people, the valley felt empty and lonely, but for Samuel, it was the only place where he felt he truly belonged. He had lived on that land for many years. It had belonged to his father and his grandfather before him. But unlike them, Samuel lived alone. Years ago, he lost his wife and child in a tragic accident. That day had changed him forever. Since then, he had stopped talking to most people, avoided gatherings, and rarely visited the nearby town. The quiet life on the farm became his escape from painful memories. He filled his days with work so that he would not have to think too much. Every day was almost the same. Samuel fed the chickens, milked the cow, and checked the crops. He repaired fences, fixed tools, and made sure his animals were safe from wild creatures. At noon, he usually sat under the old oak tree near his farmhouse and ate a simple meal, often just bread, cheese, and sometimes fruit. He liked sitting there, watching the clouds move across the sky. It made him feel peaceful. But even though he had grown used to this quiet life, there were moments when he felt a deep loneliness inside him. Sometimes, when he looked at the empty chair on the porch or heard the echo of his own footsteps inside the house, he felt the weight of his solitude more strongly. At those times, he wondered what his life might have been like if things had turned out differently. But no matter how sad he felt, he never complained. He believed that life had given him a place, and he was meant to stay there and take care of the land. The valley where Samuel lived was close to the mountains where an Apache community lived. The townspeople often talked about the tribe's deep connection with nature, their old traditions, and their quiet strength. They also spoke about something else, a strange story that many people had heard but few truly believed. Some said that deep in those mountains lived a young Apache girl who was much taller and stronger than most people. She was rarely seen, but those who claimed to have spotted her described her as calm, powerful, and mysterious. They said she walked with the confidence of someone who belonged to the land itself. Samuel never paid much attention to such stories. He believed that people liked to exaggerate and create tales to entertain themselves. Still, there were times when he wondered about the Apache community. He respected them for their values and their bond with the natural world. He had never visited them, but he had seen their fires glowing on the mountains at night, and the sight always filled him with a strange sense of curiosity. One day, late in the afternoon, Samuel noticed that one of his young calves was missing. It was not unusual for animals to wander off, especially the younger ones, but he worried that the calf could be in danger if it had moved too close to the forest at the base of the mountains. So, he grabbed his hat, picked up a lantern, and began searching for it. The sun was beginning to set, spreading warm golden light across the valley. The shadows were growing longer, and the air was turning cooler. He walked past his fields, following the small prints in the dirt. The tracks led him toward the mountain trail. He continued walking, calling out for the calf. His voice sounded small in the wide, open space. The wind carried the sound away quickly. The trail soon grew steeper. Rocks rolled under his boots, but he pushed forward. He knew the area well, but he also understood that it became harder to navigate after dark. Still, he could not leave the calf alone. A young animal had little chance of surviving the night if it wandered too far into the forest. As the sun dipped behind the mountain peaks, the light faded quickly. Samuel lifted his lantern higher. The warm glow illuminated the rough path and made the trees look taller and darker. He walked carefully, listening closely for any movement. At last, he heard a faint sound, a soft cry. It came from somewhere ahead. He followed it and finally found the calf stuck between some fallen branches. The poor animal was frightened but unharmed. Samuel knelt beside it and gently freed its legs. He whispered calm words to it, helping it relax. Once the calf stood up, it leaned against Samuel, as if seeking comfort. "Easy now," he murmured, patting its head. He was about to turn back when he heard something else, a different sound. much heavier and slower. It was the sound of footsteps, not the light tapping of a deer, or the quick movement of a fox. These steps were firm and steady, almost rhythmic. Samuel froze for a moment, unsure of what or who was nearby. His heart beat faster, but he kept still. He slowly lifted his lantern and turned toward the sound. The light shined between the trees, but he saw nothing at first. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Even the insects seemed to stop making noise. Then he saw it, a tall shadow standing between two large trees. The shape did not move. It simply watched him. Samuel felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He had lived near these mountains for years, but he had never seen anyone this tall. He slowly stepped back, keeping one hand on the calf to keep it calm. The figure stepped forward, and Samuel finally saw more clearly. It was a girl, a young Apache woman, taller than any person he had ever seen. She had long, dark hair that fell down her back and shoulders. Her face was strong, yet calm, and her eyes shone in the lantern light. She wore traditional clothing made from natural materials, decorated with patterns that reflected her heritage. Samuel could not speak. He simply stared, unsure of what to do. The girl did not look angry or threatening. Her expression was steady, almost thoughtful. She stood silently, as if deciding whether to come closer. For the first time in many years, Samuel felt something unexpected, a spark of curiosity mixed with wonder. He had heard stories about a tall Apache girl, but he never believed them. Yet here she was, standing in front of him in the fading light, watching him with calm, observant eyes. He felt the wind shift. The moment seemed to stretch endlessly. He did not know it yet, but this silent encounter was the beginning of something that would change his lonely life forever. Samuel felt his breath slow as he stood face to face with the tall Apache girl. The forest around them was silent, as though the trees themselves were holding their breath. The lantern in his hand flickered gently, casting moving shadows on her face. She remained completely calm, looking at him with deep, observant eyes. For a moment, Samuel wondered if she had been watching him long before he noticed her. He gently held onto the young calf beside him, trying not to show fear. The girl finally took one quiet step forward. Her movements were smooth and balanced, almost like she was part of the forest. She stopped a short distance from him and tilted her head slightly, studying him not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Samuel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she spoke first. "You should not walk alone here after dark," she said softly. Her voice surprised him. It was calm, steady, and carried a quiet strength. Samuel swallowed hard before answering. "I was just looking for my calf," he said, pointing to the young animal. The girl looked at the calf, then back at him. "It wandered too close to our side of the forest." Her words weren't angry. If anything, she sounded concerned. Samuel nodded, still unsure what to say. He had lived near the Apache Mountains his whole life, but he had never spoken directly to someone from the tribe, especially not someone as mysterious as her. "It's getting dark," she added. "The storm is coming soon." Samuel glanced up at the sky. Thick clouds had begun to gather near the mountain peaks. He hadn't noticed how quickly the weather had changed. "I didn't realize," he said quietly. She stepped closer, her height becoming even more obvious. She was tall, much taller than any woman he had ever seen, but there was nothing frightening about her. She carried herself with calm dignity. "You slipped earlier," she said. "Your left leg hurts." Samuel looked at her in surprise. He hadn't told her anything, but she had noticed the way he leaned on his right leg while freeing the calf. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but when he tried to take a step, a sharp pain ran up his ankle. He winced without meaning to. The girl watched him with a thoughtful expression. "You cannot walk all the way back like this," she said. "The trail will grow slippery when the storm begins." Samuel was about to tell her he would manage, but before he could speak, a loud rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The sky darkened even more, and Samuel felt a drop of water hit his hand. The girl took a deep breath, as if making a decision. "There is an old shelter not far from here," she said. My ancestors built it long ago. You will stay there until the storm passes. Samuel hesitated. He had always avoided depending on others. Years of living alone had taught him to handle things himself. But his ankle throbbed painfully, and rain was beginning to fall faster. I don't want to trouble you, he said. It is not trouble, she replied simply. You need help. There was a quiet certainty in her voice. Before he could protest again, she stepped beside him and gently took the calf's rope. Then she bent down and lifted Samuel as though he weighed almost nothing. He was shocked. He had never seen such strength, but she carried him carefully, making sure he felt steady in her arms. Her steps were firm and sure as she moved through the darkening forest, guiding the calf beside them. Samuel felt a strange mix of embarrassment and gratitude. He was not used to someone helping him like this. But the storm grew louder, and the wind began whipping through the trees. He realized that without her, he might not have made it back safely. After several minutes of walking, they reached a small stone shelter built against a rock wall. It looked old but strong, with wooden beams at the entrance and thick stone walls that protected it from the wind. The girl gently set Samuel down on a smooth rock inside the shelter. Rain was now falling heavily outside, hitting the ground with a force that made a steady drumming sound. You should rest, she said. Your ankle is swollen. Samuel looked down. She was right. The injury looked worse now. The girl stepped outside for a moment, then returned with a handful of large leaves. These help with swelling, she explained. She placed the leaves around his ankle and tied them carefully with a thin strip of cloth she carried. Her hands were strong, but gentle. Thank you, Samuel said softly. She nodded, then sat a short distance from him, close enough to watch over him but far enough to give him space. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Rain hammered the roof. The storm grew louder, lighting up the sky with flashes of white. The wind howled through the forest. But inside the shelter, they were safe. Samuel looked at her again. She stared out at the rain, her expression thoughtful. What is your name? He asked quietly. She turned to him and answered. Nayeli. The name sounded beautiful and meaningful. Samuel repeated it softly. Nayeli. And you? She asked. Samuel. Nayeli nodded gently. I have seen you before. You work alone on the land. Samuel looked surprised. You've seen me? From far away, she said. You walk the same path every morning. You fix your fences often, and you talk to your animals like they are your friends. Samuel felt his cheeks warm with embarrassment. He hadn't realized anyone had ever watched him. I didn't know anyone noticed, he said. Nayeli's expression softened slightly. You are quiet, but you are not unkind. Samuel blinked. He wasn't used to people describing him. He stared at the floor for a moment. Finally, he said, People talk about your tribe sometimes. Nayeli's eyes stayed calm. People talk about us without knowing us. Samuel nodded slowly. That is true. Another thunderclap echoed across the valley. Samuel watched the rain fall harder, and he felt strangely comforted by Nayeli's steady presence. She looked strong enough to face any storm, yet peaceful enough to calm someone with a single glance. You live far from your people? Samuel asked gently. Not far, she replied. But I walk alone often. I feel the forest better when I am not surrounded by noise. Samuel understood that feeling. I also like being alone, he admitted. Sometimes, silence is easier. Nayeli looked at him with a small hint of understanding in her eyes. But silence can become a heavy companion. Samuel nodded. He felt those words deeply. The storm raged outside for a long time. The two of them sat together in the quiet shelter, listening to the wind and the rain. Slowly, the fear Samuel had felt earlier dissolved. Nayeli didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She felt like someone who understood loneliness the way he did. Someone who belonged to the land as much as he did. As the storm continued, the space between them filled with an unspoken connection. Samuel didn't know what the next day would bring, or if he would ever meet her again after this night. But something inside him had changed. For the first time in many years, He felt that he was not entirely alone, and that someone had walked into his life unexpectedly, like a calm wind before sunrise. That night, inside the shelter, became the beginning of a bond neither of them fully understood yet. But both of them felt it quietly, like the warmth of a small flame growing in the dark. The storm ended just before sunrise, leaving the forest quiet and washed clean. Soft light filtered through the trees as Samuel slowly opened his eyes. He had fallen asleep sitting against the stone wall of the shelter, and for a moment he forgot where he was. But when he heard the gentle movement near the entrance, everything came back to him. Nayeli was standing outside, looking toward the mountains. Her tall figure was calm and steady, her long dark hair moving lightly with the morning breeze. The young calf rested near Samuel, sleeping peacefully. The air smelled fresh, carrying the earthy scent that always followed a night of rain. Samuel moved carefully, feeling the soreness in his ankle. The leaves wrapped around it felt cool, and the swelling had gone down a little. Nayeli turned when she heard him. "You slept," she said softly. "I guess I did," he replied with a small smile. "Thank you for keeping me safe." Nayeli nodded gently. "You are still weak. You should not walk alone today," Samuel sighed. "I need to return to my farm. The animals must be waiting for me." "You will go," she said, "but not alone." Samuel blinked. He didn't expect her to offer help again. But she stepped closer, calm and sure. "The path is still wet," she explained. "You can slip again. And your ankle is not ready." There was no argument in her voice, just simple truth. Samuel looked at his injured foot and knew she was right. "All right," he agreed softly. Nayeli brought him a wooden walking stick she had carved during the night while he slept. It had smooth edges and a steady grip. "You made this?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "It will help you walk." Samuel felt a warm feeling in his chest. No one had made something for him in years. He carefully stood up, leaning on the stick. Nayeli walked beside him, keeping pace with his slow steps. The calf stayed close to them, as though it trusted Nayeli completely. The forest was peaceful now, with sunlight shining between branches, making the wet leaves sparkle. As they walked, Samuel noticed how Nayeli watched every detail around them: the movement of the wind, the small footprints on the ground, the smell of the air. She was deeply connected to the land, like someone who understood its every whisper. "You know these mountains very well," Samuel said. "I was raised here," she replied. "My people taught me to listen to the land." "You must be respected among your tribe," he added. Nayeli walked quietly for a moment before speaking. "Some respect me. Some fear me, because I am different. Some respect me." Samuel looked at her. "Different? How?" She turned her eyes toward him, not angry, just honest. "My height. My strength. I do not look like most girls." Samuel shook his head. "There is nothing wrong with being different." Nayeli blinked. It seemed like she wasn't used to hearing such words. They reached the edge of the forest, where the valley began. Samuel could already see his farm in the distance. But Nayeli stopped suddenly. She looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "You should not walk farther," she said. "I'll be fine," Samuel replied. "You will fall again," she said simply. "Your leg is not ready." He tried to take another step, but pain shot up his ankle, proving her right. He sighed in frustration. Nayeli looked at him for a long moment, then made a decision she had already thought about. "You will come with me to the border of my village," she said. "My people have medicines that heal fast." Samuel hesitated instantly. Going to the Apache border was something he never imagined doing. He had always stayed on his land, respecting their space, just as they respected his. "I don't want to cause trouble," he said. "You will not," she replied. "I will speak for you." Her voice carried certainty. Samuel felt unsure, but he also trusted her in a way he couldn't explain. She had saved him once already. Maybe he was safe with her. "All right," he said quietly. Nayeli smiled faintly, just a small curve of her lips, and guided him toward a hidden path, leading deeper into the mountains. The trees grew taller, and the forest floor became softer. Samuel felt the world changing around him, as if he were stepping into a place untouched by time. After an hour of slow walking, they reached a stream with clear water running over smooth stones. Nayeli helped Samuel sit on a fallen tree. She kneeled beside the stream, gathered water in a wooden bowl, and handed it to him. "Drink," she said. The water was cool and refreshing. Samuel hadn't realized how thirsty he was. "You take care of me more than I deserve," he said softly. Nayeli shook her head. "My people help those who need help." "You would do the same." Samuel thought about it. Yes, he would. But no one had needed him in a long time. They continued walking until they reached a wide clearing. A small watchtower made of logs stood there, marked with Apache symbols. 2 young Apache scouts appeared, stepping forward with alert eyes. They held wooden spears but did not look threatening, just cautious. Nayeli raised her hand. "He is with me," she said firmly. The scouts looked surprised to see her bring an outsider. One of them asked in their language, and Nayeli replied calmly. They exchanged a few words, then stepped aside, trusting her judgment. Samuel felt a strange mix of nervousness and safety. He was entering a world he had only heard about. As they walked past the watchtower, he saw the village at a distance, simple wooden homes, smoke rising from cooking fires, people moving about in peaceful rhythm. "Is it all right for me to be here?" Samuel asked quietly. Nayeli nodded. "You are hurt. No one will harm you." He trusted her words, even if he felt like a guest in a place that held deep meaning. As they entered the village, several people turned to look. Some children paused in their games, staring at Samuel with wide eyes. Older women whispered softly. Men watched him with serious expressions, not with anger but with curiosity. Nayeli led him to a shaded hut where an elderly healer sat grinding herbs. The old man looked up as they approached. "He is injured," Nayeli said. "He needs help." The healer examined Samuel's ankle gently, then nodded. He prepared a mixture of herbs and warm water, wrapping it around Samuel's ankle with soft cloth. The medicine smelled earthy but comforting. "It will heal fast," the healer said. Samuel thanked him sincerely. During the next few hours, Samuel rested in the shade, while Nayeli spoke with elders nearby. He couldn't hear their words, but their expressions were calm, not angry. It seemed they trusted her judgment. As the day went on, Samuel observed the village people working together, children learning from elders, women weaving baskets, men crafting arrows. Everything felt peaceful, connected, and full of meaning. It was different from the lonely life he had lived for so long. Nayeli returned after some time. She sat beside him, offering a small bowl of warm food. "You should eat," she said. Samuel took it gratefully. "Your people live beautifully," he said softly. Nayeli looked at the village behind her. "We try to live close to the land," she replied. "And you?" Samuel asked. "Do you feel like you belong here?" Nayeli paused. A shadow of quiet sadness passed across her face. "I belong," she said, "but not fully. I am different from them." Samuel looked at her with gentle eyes. "Being different doesn't make you less." Her expression softened. "You are gentle," she said quietly. "Most people judge before knowing." "I know how it feels," Samuel answered. "To be misunderstood. To feel alone." Nayeli looked at him for a long moment, and something unspoken passed between them. A recognition, a shared quietness, a closeness that had begun in the storm and was growing slowly, naturally, without being forced. As afternoon turned into evening, Nayeli told him the elders had allowed him to stay until he healed. Samuel felt both grateful and uncertain. He didn't want to disturb their world. Yet he also felt a strange comfort here, a feeling he had not felt in years. But outside the village, trouble was slowly forming. Rumors were spreading among nearby townspeople. They whispered that a giant Apache girl had taken a local farmer. Fearful minds turned misunderstandings into stories. Such rumors could bring conflict if not stopped. Neither Samuel nor Nayeli knew this yet. They only knew that in the quiet heart of the Apache village, something gentle was growing: trust, understanding, and a small bridge between 2 lonely lives. Samuel's ankle healed faster than he expected. The healer's medicines worked like quiet magic, and within 2 days, he could walk without the sharp pain that had troubled him before. During his stay, the Apache people treated him with gentle curiosity. Some watched him carefully, others welcomed him with warm smiles, and children often followed him around, amazed by the outsider who spoke softly and never raised his voice. But through all of it, Nayeli stayed close. She was not always standing beside him, but she never stayed far either. She guided him through the village, introduced him to her people, and explained small details about their daily life. She walked with the confidence of someone who understood every corner of the land, and Samuel followed her with quiet trust. One morning, Samuel and Nayeli walked along the edge of the village, where tall trees created a wall of shade. Samuel felt uneasy, though he couldn't explain why. Something in the air felt different. "Nayeli," he said softly, "are your people comfortable with me here?" She paused and looked at him with steady eyes. "Some are cautious, but none wish you harm. They saw your kindness. They understand you needed help." "I just don't want to cause trouble," he said. "You are not trouble," she replied simply. "You are a guest." Her voice carried an unusual softness with those words. Samuel felt warmth spread across his chest. No one had called him a guest with such sincerity in many years. His farm life had been so quiet and isolated that he had almost forgotten what being welcomed felt like. But far from the village, things were not calm. The nearby townspeople had noticed Samuel hadn't returned home, and rumors began to grow like wild brush fire. Some said the Apache tribe had captured him. Others claimed a tall girl from the mountains had taken him away. People added fear to harmless stories. And soon, a group of villagers gathered near the valley to search for Samuel. They meant well, but fear can twist even good intentions. While Samuel sat outside a small hut carving a wooden spoon, something Nayeli had taught him, the sound of hurried footsteps came through the trees. 2 Apache scouts appeared, both breathing heavily. They spoke quickly to Nayeli in their language. Samuel couldn't understand their words, but he read the tension on their faces immediately. Nayeli turned to him with a serious expression. "People from the town are coming," she said. "They are looking for you." Samuel felt his stomach tighten. "Why? I'm not missing. I'm safe here." "They think you were taken," she said carefully. "They think I took you." Samuel shook his head in disbelief. "But that's not true. People fear what they do not know." Nayeli replied quietly. The scouts spoke again, and Nayeli listened, her brows lowering with concern. "They are coming fast," she said. "They may be frightened. They may say things that hurt. We must meet them before they reach the village." Samuel stood slowly. His ankle felt strong enough to walk without the stick, but his heart was unsteady. "I should go alone," Samuel suggested. "If they see me walking freely, they'll understand." Nayeli shook her head. "They will not see clearly if they are frightened. I will go with you." "But they're afraid of you," Samuel said gently. "Then they must learn the truth," she replied. There was quiet determination in her voice, strong, but calm, the same strength he had felt in the stormy night when she carried him to safety. They walked through the forest together, accompanied by 2 scouts. Samuel's steps were firm, though he felt uneasiness growing inside him. The forest path eventually opened into a wide clearing, and there, at the far end, stood the villagers, holding lanterns, ropes, and long sticks. They were not attacking, but their posture was tense. When they saw Samuel, confusion spread through the crowd. Whispering rose like wind. "He's alive. He's walking. That tall girl, she's with him." Samuel stepped forward, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "I'm fine," he called out. "No one harmed me," but fear made the crowd restless. People looked at Nayeli as though she were a threat, not the gentle girl who had saved Samuel from danger. Some stepped back, others stepped forward angrily. A man shouted, "Why did she take you into the mountains?" Samuel felt his heart twist. They didn't understand. They saw only what fear showed them. "She didn't take me," Samuel replied firmly. "I was hurt. I couldn't walk. She helped me." She saved me, the crowd murmured again, but fear still clouded their thinking. Nayeli stood behind Samuel, tall and steady, saying nothing. She didn't defend herself. She didn't step back. She simply watched. Waiting, another villager spoke loudly. Why would an Apache help one of us? Samuel felt anger building, not loud anger, but silent, heavy anger, at how easily people misunderstood. Because kindness is not limited to one side, he said. Because she has a heart. And because I needed help. Some people lowered their eyes, uncertain. Others still looked doubtful. One young boy in the crowd stepped forward shyly. He stared at Samuel's wrapped ankle. You were really hurt? He asked. Samuel nodded. Yes. I couldn't walk. I would still be lying in the forest if not for her. The boy looked up at Nayeli with wonder, not fear. Did you really help him? Now, Nayeli bent slightly so she could look at the boy more closely. Her expression softened. Yes, she said gently. I only helped someone who needed it. The boy smiled a simple, honest smile. And sometimes, the smallest smile can break the hardest wall. Silence spread through the villagers. One by one, their tense shoulders relaxed. Whispering grew softer. The crowd slowly accepted what Samuel had been trying to say. Finally, an older man stepped forward and spoke on behalf of the group. If he says he is safe, then we believe him. Samuel felt relief wash over him. The villagers put down their ropes and sticks. Some apologized quietly. Others simply nodded at Nayeli with respect they didn't know how to express in words. The danger passed like a cloud drifting away. As the villagers returned to the valley, Samuel and Nayeli walked back toward the forest. The scouts disappeared quietly into the trees. For a moment, only the two of them remained at the edge of the path. Samuel turned to her. I'm sorry, he said softly. They didn't understand. They didn't understand. They didn't understand. They were afraid, Nayeli answered. Fear makes the mind blind. It is not your fault. Samuel looked at her with sincerity. You protected me. You didn't have to. But you did. Nayeli met his eyes with unusual softness. You did not fear me when we first met, she said. You saw me as a person, not as a story. Samuel felt the air grow still between them. He realized she was right. From the moment he saw her in the forest, he had been unsure, but not afraid. And she had seen something in him too, something that others didn't notice. You don't have to walk back with me, he said. I can go home. Nayeli looked at him for a long moment. Her expression changed, calm, yet full of meaning. You will not go back to that empty house tonight, she said quietly. Samuel felt his breath catch. You will sleep in my bed, she said. You are not leaving alone. Her words were not commanding. They were protective, caring. She wasn't asking him to stay out of force. She was telling him that he belonged somewhere. At least for one night, where he would not feel alone. Samuel looked into her deep, steady eyes. He saw no danger there. Only warmth, trust, and something gentle growing between them. Something he had not felt in years. He nodded slowly. All right, he whispered. I'll stay. For the first time in a long time, Samuel did not feel like a lonely man returning to an empty home. He felt like someone had opened a door for him, someone who understood his silence, his struggles, and his quiet heart. And as they walked together back into the mountains, the valley behind them seemed less lonely, and the world ahead felt full of new beginnings.